Jon Morosi. I don't need to say any more.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Guardians. I'm one of your two hosts here. I want to thank you for making Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day, wherever you get podcasts. And in our daily YouTube count, we are at 939. We need 61 more of you or friends or your family to subscribe to help us get to the monetization, which would be huge for both of us podcasters here. Who am I? I'm the only person who gave Jon Morosi a first-round grade coming out of college. I'm one of the few people who got to catch him that year. Not an intentional pun. Because he had a broken hamate bone and didn't play a lot. And I drove all the way to, I believe, was it Lake County Stadium? Is that the one where Youngstown State occasionally play? I can't remember. Is that wrong? Maybe Mahoning Valley?
I don't think so. Oh, yeah.
The one behind the mall.
The Scrappers.
The Scrappers, yeah. So I drove up there, caught a game in the pouring rain where he put on an absolute show. And I believe the other scout there were two scouts. We all, well, I wasn't a scout, but we hung out in the tunnel. And one of them was from Oakland and saw him running like a gazelle, hitting for power in a downpour, and just making the other side look foolish. Cleveland Guardians disagreed with me and took Logan Ice instead, one round before Jon Morosi. So, but they can correct that issue. And the rumor of the day. Well, first, wait, I'm running all over this. Justin.
I am Justin, the other co-host of this podcast, and I did not give Jon Morosi first round grade because I didn't know who he was. Back then, the draft is not my forte. My forte is to watch prospects after they've already been drafted, because that's hard enough to do. I do that at Guardians Baseball Insider, where I, make it look like I have some idea what I'm talking about, but really I just sit here and go back and forth with Jeff and hope for the best.
Everyone kind of knew about Morosi, who was on the scene then, I will say, just because he had elite of the elite pop times. So everyone was intrigued. And then his stock took a hit because he broke his hamate. That's just plain simply the end of it. And didn't work out quite the way Cleveland had hoped. Logan Ice had two disappointing years at Oregon State, broke out, and Cleveland believes the break. Unfortunately, it did not break their way. Jon Morosi, I'm sorry. And there's pronunciation issues. Hit me again. He said the Guardians are interested. It's like, oh, you're kidding me. This is a fresh story. The one thing we always talk about is who does this benefit? Essentially, this is someone in Oakland leaking a story to say, let's get some more offers in. Okay, they got top offer right now. If you're reading between the lines enough, they're not willing to offer Williams or Espino in a deal unless they've changed their mind. It's this feels like they have not changed their mind. They are not going to move one of those top two arms. So this is their offer, and can someone else top it? Cleveland has depth. It is hard to top them, even if they don't do those top two guys. But again, at the end of the day, nothing ever gets out of Cleveland. They are a tight ship there. And that if they were the Empire, the Death Star would have never been blown up. That's just the way of it. Nothing escapes at Cleveland Guardians front office. And this is clearly, again, it's not new information. They're interested in Morosi. They've been interested in Morosi for 9 months. That they're one of the potential front runners doesn't tell us anything other than getting everyone hot and bothered. But we do have to discuss it because it is news, and in a time of low news. Yeah. Are you shocked that they are interested in Jon Morosi?
Well, first, are you telling me there's no kidnapped scientist somewhere in the Guardians front office? There's no Jonah Hill in there who's somebody's nephew who's good at computers. They kidnapped and just put him to work. That's how it could have leaked. I'm trying to make a Star Wars reference here. You made a Star Wars reference, and
I'm a super Star Wars nerd, so I can just keep going. It's I don't know.
That's a Rogue One reference.
Yeah, I was going into Rogue One. I finished watching Andor. Apparently, we're going to get into some streaming talk for the second day in a row. But yeah, it's there's is this Jyn Erso trying to get to her father? Is that what we're going for here?
Yes,
Either way.
You could have got me down a very scary rabbit hole there with the Star Wars and baseball crossover. That's dangerous territory.
Let's see if I move this. You can see the little Darth Vader lightsaber in the background. of mine. Like there is something I got when I was like in middle school, hanging out back there. So my nerddom is high. I'm not going to hide it. But listen, Sean Murphy makes his team a lot better. It is a massive improvement. I did Locked On Oakland, Jason Burke. It's like, hey, who would you trade? Because I'm sure that's going to be something he now uses in his show tonight. And I'll be honest, my trade offer, and this is going to make some people mad, I don't want to part with the big three. So it immediately, if you're not going to part with those three big arms, which to me, tier one is the three pitchers. My top four prospects are those three pitchers and Naylor. I'm willing to go trade my 5-6, which is, and honestly, I don't think they're my 5-6 anymore. I think Martinez, the more information and the more advanced data we're getting, Angel Martinez is a tier 2 guy. He is 5 or 6 in this system for me right now. Like he is up there. So I'm saying Rocchio and Valera, because you're going to have to trade multiple pieces from tier 2. I'm saying Logan Allen, because when you're looking at that next tier of pitching, they like pitchability guys. That's Logan Allen. Fourth piece, it's probably someone like Cody Morris or Tyler Freeman. Like it's something from that tier. It's going to be expensive, and I know people are screaming about the cost. If Avery's listening right now, he is burning his phone in a fiery pit somewhere. But if you're going to go get this player, it's going to hurt. And just as a counterpoint, I went through and pulled up like for Matt Olson, like the fourth piece was Joey Estes, who as a 19-year-old in A-ball, because of a missed 2020, he was drafted as a 17-year-old, had an 11.5 strikeout per 9 and a 2.6 walk per 9. He was really good. He was the fourth piece. Ryan Cusick had been their first-round pick the year before with the Braves and was a big strikeout guy. Shane Langoliers, the centerpiece, was a top 10 overall selection, 9th, I believe, and a future power hitting catcher. And Christian Pache at various times had been one of the top 10 prospects in baseball. All of us were a little bit concerned that that either he was going to be a star or he was going to be nothing because of the bat issues, but he was still a interesting prospect. Murphy
he might be Miles Straw.
Yeah, and you hope for more at the time. There was still a little more ceiling chatter, but Murphy plays a more valuable position. I believe has one more year of control. And we were looking at even other deals, like what Chris Bassett got JT Ginn, a college pitcher, but they like those smaller guys who throw hard. And then Adam Oler, who was
TJ too,
pitchability guy. Yeah,
and
they're not
Ginn was coming out. Yeah,
that's the thing. Like if it's not like Cody Morris, if it's not Logan Allen, like the other deal I see is like if you go Valera, Rocchio, Cantillo, like they wouldn't be scared off of Cantillo, and he is. There are people who are going to have Cantillo 8th in this system, 7th in this system. I'm calling it now. He is higher rated than people think because the data when he did pitch was that good.
It's good. Yeah, I think you're right. I think Avery definitely is trying to force choke us right now, talking about this trade again. And I know everyone's like, oh, yes. All they're doing right now is talking about Sean Murphy. We've had, I don't know how many shows about Sean Murphy at this point.
It keeps coming up. It
does. And it's not unfounded. I mean, they've been connected to him going back to the summer. And then the report was Anthony Castrovan said that there was like a little small nugget in his last piece. It was his Black Friday piece, I think he had said about, moves that could work. And neither of us agreed with the trade because it was just Valera and Rocchio for Murphy. But he dropped a little nugget in there saying that Cleveland was reluctant to trade any of its top pitching prospects for Murphy at the time. I don't know if they've relented on that. I will say, we're talking about media literacy, and this time of year is a silly season. Same with late July. There's not a lot of new news in Morosi's tweet saying Guardians are among most active suitors for Murphy. I am sure they're having discussions. There's no doubt they're interested in him. It's not really new. I think there's enough. I don't know. Have we reached the point where maybe some of this leak stuff has kind of jumped the shark? Because I think everybody out there knows who's looking for what. Like, I think Cleveland's pretty aware that the Cardinals want a catcher. They want Sean Murphy. I think the Cardinals are pretty aware at this point that the Cleveland's interested in Sean Murphy. I don't know if you necessarily need Jon Morosi to get a tip from Oakland saying, hey, the Guardians are right now talking to us a lot about Sean Murphy. Like, I don't think you need that tweet to stir the pot for John Mozeliak and the Cardinals to say, oh, the offer has been up for Sean Murphy. Like, Cleveland's interested. I think you know that. These guys are so connected. Like, yeah, you're not going to give away trade secrets because you're never going to want to give up what you're getting, what your offer is for a certain guy. But I wonder if we've kind of jumped the shark a little bit on this whole, yes, you always want to look at this information and say, okay, who does this benefit? Because that does happen, and you do have to be careful. I think that I don't know. I just think that some of these GMs are just connected now, and I think you don't need planted leaks. Like, planted leaks are still going to happen, but I don't think you need them to generally convey broad interest. Like, if there's, especially when it comes to Sean Murphy, like if it's a different prospect or different situation or a different player, possibly, but for a player of the ilk of Sean Murphy, I don't know if you necessarily need that kind of tweet. So yes, I think some of it is for engagement and for TV conversation from Morosi, because they need that right now before the winter meetings start. But I do think some of that is pretty obvious, and who knows? I think you also have to hope that he has a third-party source. It's not coming just from Oakland, too. That's what you have to think about. But no, this rumor definitely does stand to benefit Oakland, but I don't think it's when you're talking about players of Sean Murphy, I don't think it's as needed as you think. I think you can maybe take a step back from all of that, talk about who this benefits and who's leaking it, because I think it's just obvious.
It could just be as simple as of like, hey, what do you got? Like, sometimes everyone's desperate for info, and he might have gone to his Oakland guy and be like, what do you got? And it might not even be to generate. It just might be like, okay, well, I can tell you the thing everyone knows. Like, because the high level media guys have relationships, and it could be like, okay, if I'm going to give him something, what can I afford to give him? Well, I can give him the thing that everyone and their mother knows. Like,
right. And none of this is a knock on Jon Morosi. I have a lot of respect for him. Like we've talked about before, as a bilingual reporter, it's super impressive. But I am going to be honest. I think in tiers of reporters nationally, like for me, it's Passan and Rosenthal, and then I think everybody else. We're talking about like prospect rankings and reporter rankings. It's Jeff Passan, Ken Rosenthal, and then I think from there everything's a tier down. That's not a knock on Morosi. That's just saying when you start to see things from certain reporters, that's when you can probably
you go down your tiers, and then when you get to the low tier, you got Bowden and Heyman.
Yes,
and
there you go.
That's where that ends.
Well, John Heyman's in his own tier because it's just a Scott Boras tier. So I don't know. Maybe Jon Heyman will break the Josh Bell at Cleveland news. And we'll get to that later.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But I want to say one other thing. As much as I bag on Bowden, at least he's doing content. Like right now, it's kind of amazing how no one is filling that void. And like
it's bad.
It's it takes me back to time. I'm like, man, I should go back and write. And then I'm like, oh, that's right. I do this podcast, I teach, and I have kids. So that's not going to happen. But instead, we do it here. You get the equivalent of it in this format. But we need to get to our next segment. We have talked. There's nothing more to talk about with Murphy for the most part.
Oh, there is. There is.
I mean, there is. We've covered a ton of it. Let me change my statement. We've covered so much Murphy. We could go super deep in the weeds, but there are people out there who are like, not Jon Murphy again, I'm sure. We'll have to see. When this is the news of the day, we're going to cover it. So we covered it as best as we can. Hopefully, at some point during this winter meetings, Sean Murphy will be a Guardian, and we'll have a episode that's just a dance party while we sit back and enjoy it. That won't really happen. Maybe that's like a 5-minute bonus short episode of me just like horribly dancing. If they get, I guess, in the comments, is that what you want if Sean Murphy signs? It's just a terrible one for the YouTube shorts. But we're going to take a break, talk about one of our fantastic sponsors, and come back and jump on the tease that was given earlier about Josh Bell. But first, let's talk about our good friends over at Bet Online. Listen, they got you covered, right? Let's not go to the ad read. I want to talk about, so I'm currently on the Bet Online website. Esports, we talk about that. That's something different, something you don't see as much from more of your traditional place. They have a esports tab. You can go in English or Chinese. You can look at that. They have online poker. They have contests. They have promos, race books, casino games. It's not just sports handicapping. Whatever it is that you are looking for, you will find it over with our good friends at Bet Online. Go check it out for yourself. It's a very easy to navigate website. You can go through and, like I said, you're amazed at the table tennis that are appearing. They do have live plays. You might have heard some of that music pop up there. So go check out Bet Online for yourself today. They are fantastic sponsors. Anything you need in that area, they have you covered. Get in the game with Bet Online today.
So I feel like if you're Moff Gideon, Sean Murphy is the child, your Grogu.
Child, that's it kind of. I mean, though I've never had him. Like, at least at one time Gideon had the child, right? Like then they came along.
That's true. Sure. I'm just gonna find a way to pepper in Star Wars references at this point.
I mean, we could go the other nerdy way. It's like, is he my One Ring and I'm Gollum? I mean, I do have some facial resemblance.
Oh, okay.
So, and we can go. My nerd runs deep. It is. I just all the stereotypes. I mean, you can see the board games. You can probably see the video games, Star Wars stuff, the baseball stats. I'm just setting myself up to get absolutely leveled in these comments today. So there we go.
I'm right there with you. It's okay. Just nobody can see my stuff.
Now, Josh Bell, I thought one of the, going into the Bowden piece, one of the more interesting statements in there. One, I don't see the contract being that cheap. We'll get into it, but like we talked about how there are some similarities between him and Carlos Santana. And Carlos Santana got significantly more than $39 million when he was 2 years older than Bell is. But I thought it was interesting. They talked about how he would fit in as a high character guy in the Cleveland locker room. I thought that was an interesting statement. That I agree. He definitely is a very intelligent guy, but he seemed to focus in on that as one of his statements with Bell.
Who said that?
Jim Bowden in his piece tried to do the matching up of, I'll pull up the article and read the exact thing here. And when I get to Cleveland, what everyone wants, just someone vamping on air. The Guardians need another power bat, which Bell could provide. Actually, that's not true. He's not a real power bat. He had that one big season. He would be an improvement, but I wouldn't call him a power bat. Bell reached base at a 36% clip with 14 home runs and 71 RBIs in a split season. His strong makeup would fit nicely with Cleveland's young group of up-and-coming players.
He's a power bat the same way Carlos Santana was. He has 30 home run power, but it's more like 25 home run power.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. I tweeted this earlier today, and it got some reaction. And I wasn't intentionally trying to stir anything up, but Josh Bell's agent is Scott Boras. Cleveland doesn't typically talk to – I shouldn't say talk to. Cleveland typically does not end up in the running for most Scott Boras clients. The last time they did that was Nick Swisher, Michael Bourne. We talked about this when we talked about the Gavin Williams situation. We know Boras definitely doesn't do extensions. Cleveland has signed. So someone did point out to me that, Cleveland doesn't typically sign Scott Boras free agents, but the last couple of major free agents they have signed were Scott Boras clients. Like Bourne and Swisher were Scott Boras clients. Besides Edwin, that was the last major free agent they signed.
Boone Logan.
So anyway, we're gonna let that one go. That was
Brian Shaw.
That was the Phantom one, or the Phantom Menace of comments today on this discussion. So yeah, the last couple times Cleveland has signed a big free agent, they have been Scott Boras clients. They just typically don't get in the waters with Scott.
There's
Boras.
no trade embargo involving Scott Boras in Cleveland.
Yes, they're not salt runners. They're spice runners, I should say. I don't know. I mean, do you think that there is any? Does that complicate things at all? Because to me, no. This is why I tweeted this. It has nothing to do with Boras specifically or Josh Bell specifically, but it has to do with the fact that the first base market has been strong so far between Santana and Bell, or Santana and Abreu, which we've covered, and Boris always gets his players top value, the top of the market. His market's going to be strong based on what Abreu and Santana just got. So is he going to wind up falling into a range where Cleveland is going to be in play? And to me, that comes down to, Cleveland always sets their price, right? This is not a quote unquote get your guy thing. There is no quote unquote guy for Cleveland. There is only players we like and the price we're willing to pay for them. That is all it is. There is no your guy thing. It is value and price. If these two things don't equal out, Cleveland's not doing anything. If you're listening, you can't see me waving my hands. That's just for the effect. Cleveland's not interested if they don't get their value. They set their value and they usually stick to it. I suppose they could, up the ante a little bit if they really feel strongly about a certain player, but I think this is a pretty measured front office with those kind of things, maybe more so in prospects. But I just wonder, do they view Josh Bell? It's going to come down to whether or not they view Bell as an impact player for what he's going to get. I think it's going to be 464. I think that's what it's going to come in at. I don't think he's going to get 339. That just seems absurdly low to me, based on what Abreu just got. How is he going to get less than Jose Abreu 5 years? I know he's not as good as Jose Abreu, but he's younger. The market's strong. He's a switch hitter. There are good traits there.
Abreu actually grades out as a better defender. I will say consistency. Bell and consistency are two words that don't go together. And his second half was as well received as the Phantom Menace. Let's just keep this Star Wars going. It was putrid. He was awful in the second half. It was an 84 runs created plus. He is not a good or an 81, even worse than I thought. He just, the power went away. It was not good. So his second half wasn't good. He's had multiple below average seasons. He is not a good defender. He's probably more a DH than a first baseman. So those are the things that could hold him back. Listen, Abreu has been consistently awesome. That's why he got the big money, because he is a no doubter. Like, you're going to get him in this next 2 years. He's going to be one of the top 10 players, if not top 5 at his position. Josh Bell, you can't guarantee he's going to be top 15. And that could also be where Cleveland says, nope. I don't think Boris matters. Boris gets the most money, and if Cleveland happens to offer the most, he's here. If he's 339 and do that tomorrow, if he's 464, exactly. I'm stopping to think a little bit more, because again, as much as I'm really intrigued by him, his power has been inconsistent for his career. His overall year-to-year production has had inconsistencies. That dates back to even the minors. Like, his prospect ranking was like year to year on massive flux. The consistency has just not been. He has been consistently inconsistent. So I think that's, when you look at that, you look at the fact that some people view him as a DH, and then you look at that bad second half. Was it due to the trade? Was it due to pressure down the stretch? Was it due to impending free agency? Was it due to just having some bad factors? I don't know, but he had a ballpark. He went from a 149 weighted runs created, which again means he is almost 50% better than your average player in the first half, to an 81. So he's 20% below. So I think there's reasons why he might end up getting less, and I could see him. And that's the thing. It's like I could almost see him settling for a 2-year deal, because at the end of a 2-year deal, he's 32 and he could still get paid again. Like, if he takes a 3-year deal, it's 33. The pay, it's harder to do. I don't know if he wants a 4-year deal. Like, you can't hit free agency again on a 4-year deal at age 34 and likely get as much money. I could almost see him settling for something like, the more I thought about it, it's like 2 years, $30 million. Like, that could get it done at $15 million a year, because then he gets to, or if it is a 4-year contract, I could see an opt out. Like, I think there's going to be a drive to get one more free agent contract in there.
I don't know. I don't think he's at the age where he's going to do that. I think this is his first baseman declined so quickly. I don't know.
I just think after that down year, it's going to be hard for him to get paid the way he maybe necessarily wants to. I wouldn't, like I said, that's why I wouldn't be shocked if he took a little less.
Maybe, but like you said, if he was really going to take 339, you'd do it tomorrow. If he's going to get less than that, I mean, Cleveland would love less risk. They are very risk averse. If he can get signed for 2 and 30, I think Cleveland would have done it already because I don't think there's any risk involved for them in such a move. So that doesn't add up. But this profile sometimes
he couldn't have been. Never mind.
No, so this profile sometimes doesn't age all that great. Nick Swisher. I don't want to say Nick Swisher was similar. But I think a lot of us felt like Nick Swisher was going to age well because of the walks, right? Well, now and Santana has aged somewhat well. I mean, he did have that rebound in 2019, but if you go back, 20 he wasn't great, 21 wasn't great, 22 he wasn't great. Yes, he's still walking, but that's the only value he's really providing: defense and value and leadership, and a little bit of power. But overall, the
kills
OPS,
lefties. I mean, he was
top
20 against lefties.
And Bell could be of a similar ilk with the ages. I just think that this profile sometimes he had a lower swinging strike rate this year at 8.7. That's the lowest that's second lowest of his career. That's great. I don't know. I think there's a risk though that he gets to 32 and he hits the free. Maybe you're right. Maybe there's an opt out situation where he can go back on the market at 32 and go back and get 3 more years. I just don't think the market's that soft. I think the market is going to be strong for him. I know the inconsistency is a worry, but what teams are interested in first baseman? Let's look at it that way, because this is not necessarily player dependent; it's market dependent. Who needs a first baseman? The Padres need a first baseman. The
Rays, the Marlins offered on Abreu.
Yeah, the Rays. We're checking in on Abreu.
Yeah, the Marlins. Like I said, they've supposedly offered. I'm trying to think who were the runner-up teams on Abreu.
The Cubs. There are people talking about the Cubs going after Abreu.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of teams out there who still need a first baseman. The Giants are going to need a first baseman, right? They lost Brandon Belko, right?
Yeah. I mean, they'll probably. I mean, I'm trying to think what they're.
Right now, J.D. Davis is slated to be their first baseman. I could see J.D. Davis popping more back into a
DH
utility. Yeah, well, Jack Peterson's back, but you can move Davis around. So you've got the Giants. You've got
Davis. Davis still had a solid offensive year.
He did, but he could still move other spots. All right, so you've got the Guardians, the Cubs, the Giants, the Rays. And who was the other one I just said?
The Marlins. Rays, Marlins.
Yeah. So there's in the Padres. So there's 5 or 6 teams out there that are after first baseman. Guess who the next best first baseman is after Abreu? It's Josh Bell. I don't know. I think there's a demand. And who is on the market in terms of trades for first baseman? There's not. We wanted Christian Walker to be, but he is not.
CJ Cron, I think, could be had.
All right, go to break. If you're talking about CJ Cron, I
had someone ask me about him today. That's the only reason I'm bringing it up.
I saw. Yeah, I'm just not that interested. I'm sorry. I'm just not.
I mean, what was it this year? He was league average at age 32 with terrible defense and pretty bad splits. Like maybe after last year, I would have considered it, but yeah, you don't come after.
There's nobody. I mean, Drury is still out there, but Drury is behind Bell for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody else is trading a first baseman. Otherwise, we would have talked about it because we talked about Christian Walker. That's not going to happen. Nobody else is trading first baseman. So Josh Bell is the next big fish. So I think the market's still going to be strong for him. I don't see how Boris doesn't get him 4 years and 12 to 15 million per year.
Yeah, no, I think I'm not disagreeing with any of that. Why don't we actually though take that break that you threatened there, and then come back, maybe talk about some prospects here on today's episode of Locked On Guardians. And we are back. Long break.
Yes. Welcome back.
Like I said, we discuss what the rumors be. And
you were right, though. You did bring up a great point before we move on to prospects real quickly about Josh Bell. There are just so many similarities to Carlos Santana. I don't want to steal your thunder because you found the stats where we were looking, but we were looking at swing takes on StatCast. So basically, they assign a run value based on basically it's walks, strikeouts, and home runs, or taking a ball, taking a strike, or hitting a home run. And Josh Bell, not great on the heart of the plate. -8 run value in the middle of the plate. -13 on the shadow of the plate, which is basically like the black of the plate, or the letters to the knees, like pitcher's pitches. But outside the strike zone, major positive run value at +42. Basically, the whole swing less thing is more valuable, and that's what it is for Bell. Carlos Santana is very similar. It's a weird profile. It's a profile I just have concerns with because you're relying on walks as value, and he may always walk, but he may regress hitting the ball than he already has now. So that's my concern there. But it's interesting to look at that value, or that data, because it can be very telling, and that's how he's very, very closely related statistically to Carlos Santana.
Now you've made the fan base hate him. So when he
see, for years I was always a Carlos Santana defender. I mean, I
was as well. And some people have forgotten just how bad that was. But there was, I mean, I won't call out specific media members, but I saw like media like disparaging his production at points. And it's like,
yeah, people just didn't understand the walks and everything else. Like, and it wasn't just he was walking; he still had a slugging percentage in the 400s. It wasn't like he wasn't hitting for power at the time. So he's not now as much, but yeah. So pitching prospects, you want to wrap up the show with pitching prospects?
Yeah, we're going to keep it short and sweet here. Actually, yes, we're going to keep it short and sweet. I was just debating if I would cut the show and have eventually we're going to figure this out. So then we'll do a longer show version on YouTube and try to space ourselves a little bit better. It is a work in process. Just so we can make everybody happy. We appreciate everyone who has been commenting about how much I love the longer format. We want to make sure to always provide that. So eventually it might move to the point where it's like you get extra on YouTube. So, hey, again, subscribe on YouTube. Favorite, we thought we'd do something fun. Like we talked some starting pitchers yesterday, and we've kind of talked to depth about a lot of the pitchers in the system. So we thought it might be fun to maybe talk about take a favorite prospect who's lower down the line, a guy who we are watching, looking at, who is a maybe underrated, but more than anything, just a lower, like lesser named prospect. So Justin, you actually have more of a knowledge of this part. So I'm going to have you go second, just because I think Justin's better informed than I am. So I think you're going to get better information on this. But a guy I've liked, and this probably isn't a surprise, is Trenton Denholm. I know the numbers this year were not huge. Like it was a 4.79 ERA. It was a 22-year-old in A-ball. That's not great. The 9.86 K to 9 ratio. My former co-host does not agree with this assessment, by the way. I said that he ran up, but his FIP was a 401. His xFIP was a 427, a little home run prone. I am curious to see what he can do next year, just because, he always had I believe the changeup was the really good offering in college. And then all of a sudden he started throwing super hard. Now he didn't maintain that velocity from what I heard in reports, but I think the curve also looked better. Like he had a potential as a starter. And I think maybe more than likely ends up being an interesting relief prospect. But I liked him dating back to his college days. I thought they would look at him out of, I think, UC Irvine in the 2020 draft. Instead, they came back in the 2021 draft, got him in day one. And it's interesting. Before Tanner Bybee broke out with the added velocity, it was last spring when Denholm was the talk for the velocity jump. And again, I don't think he maintained it. I didn't hear as many positive reports. But sometimes with that jump, even if you don't maintain it, it takes a little bit to get used to how you throw with more stuff. So I'm not necessarily saying he's a top 20 guy, because he wouldn't be for me. But I'm saying he's an interesting player you want to keep your eyes on, because there is a chance he could be a helium target for next year.
I agree with you on Denholm. Denholm was, for me, was what I thought. I thought he would do what Tanner Bybee did. So I'm 100% with you on Denholm. Smaller guy, they obviously had a lot of faith in. I will say the guy I'm really interested in at a lower level, he should be in AA to start the year. We'll see. Is Jack Leftwich. I'm a little nervous saying that because he ended the year with an elbow issue. They shut him down at the end of the year with some elbow soreness. So he didn't pitch the playoffs for Lake County. And he just turned 24, I believe. Let me double check that. I think he just turned 24. If not,
I think that's
he turned 24 in back in September. So he'll be 24 all of next season. So he needs to be in AA. But he had over 100 innings last year, and he had over 100 strikeouts. Didn't walk a ton of batters, more control than I thought he was going to have. I don't know how much of that is due to being in the lower level, but we saw a fastball that got to 97 at times last year. I like the slider. The changeup showed some promise at times. He's a very cerebral pitcher. He's shown a lot of growth personally. A guy who was who didn't take things seriously at high school level. Grew a ton in college and mentally is very focused right now. And he gets the data side of things. Like I know I talked to him earlier in the year and he was talking about how he was working on changing the shape of his fastball because the shape of his guys who throw he has a gyro slider, I believe. And guys who throw the gyro slider don't typically have the kind of fastball he has. So he's trying to work on that because it's better for, I don't know, I'm guessing
like
tunneling
and deception, right? Like,
Yeah, or
guys,
shifted wake, maybe.
Yeah, because then they can't, like when there's that big of a disparity, sometimes it's just, okay, they can pick up really quickly. Okay, this is the fastball, this is the change. And then
it's the spin direction. Yeah, the spin direction. He'll be able to spin mirroring is what it was. Spin mirroring. So he's working on changing the shape of his fastball to play off his slider better. So he kind of gets those side of things. But his control was a lot better than I thought it was going to be coming into the season. I thought Tommy Mace was going to be the guy that took off as like the, surefire. Yeah, just the control and command guy who would have a good season. I thought Leftwich would be in the bullpen, but no, I'm definitely interested. I mean, I know we talked about Doug Nikhazy with Lindsay a little bit, but I really like to see where Jack Leftwich is going. I think the stuff is there. There are some concerns about the delivery as well. I think the delivery has a little bit of violence to it. So a lot of bullpen risk, but even if he's a reliever, he could be a very good one.
Yeah. I mean, the profile you just described is a good reliever and you can never have enough of those. And we'll be previewing the bullpen later this week. So we can do a bit of a shout for that. Thank you for listening, rating and reviewing, downloading daily. It helps. Subscribe on the YouTube, 61 away. Help out our show as we get closer and closer to.
And hey, if we showed up in any of your Spotify Wrapped, special thank you to Zach who listens to a lot of this and their podcast. I do. He tweeted out his screenshots and of his Spotify Wrapped, and I think we were up there with
Orange and Brown. There was a football one at one.
Oh, yeah, a Browns one and a Big Cavs one. Yeah.
Yeah. If you tag me in any of those tweets, I will retweet it with the statement. I did that a year ago, and I plan to do that this year. But
thank you.
Thank you to everyone. It's awesome to see, and thank you for everything you do. I'll keep doing the Daniel Tiger song until someone else says something. Because but
you're officially more nerdy than I am. If you know, I don't know what that is. So you officially out-nerded me.
It's a parent thing. It's 100% a parent thing. Thank you all, and as we end every show, go Guardians, go.